Session 1. Concept and the nature of the family. Introduction. In this study session, we will present the family as an institution. We will also examine the definition and the main concept used in understanding the family and functions of the family as well. Family as an institution. The family is a central institution in all human societies, though it may take many different forms. A family is a group of people related by blood, marriage, or adoption. Blood relations are often called consanguineous attachment. Relations between adult persons living together according to the norms of marriage or other intimate relationship are called conjugal relations. Corbom, 1997. However, neither blood ties nor marriage nor adoption adequately describes the increasing common relationship between unmarried people who consider themselves as a couple or a family. In a more broader sense, a family is defined as two or more persons who share resources, share responsibility for decision, share values and goals, and have a commitment to one another over time. Aldous and Durman, 1991. As an institution, the family characterized by the following identified by Corbom, 1997. 1. The family as a social institution comprises a set of status, roles, norms and values devoted to achieving important social goals. Those goals include the social control of reproduction, the socialization of new generations, and the social placement of children in the institution of the large society, such as colleagues, business firms, and so forth. 2. In many societies, especially peasant society, the family performs almost all the functions necessary to meet the basic needs of its members. These basic needs include the communication among members, production and distribution of goods and services, production and defense, replacements of members and control of members. However, the contemporary era, most of the functions that were traditionally performed by the family are now performed by either partly or only by other social institutions that are specially adapted to performing those functions. 3. The ability of the family to meet its socially expected goals, society expected to meet, is often complicated by rapid social change. For example, many families in industrial communities are quite good at preparing their children for blue-collar manufacturing jobs, but as those jobs have been eliminated owing to globalization of the economy, it is no longer clear how families can equip their offsprings to compete in the new job market. 4. There are major changes in other social institutions, such as economic institutions. Families must adapt to those changes. Similarly, when the family changes, other social institutions will be affected. However, the effects of these changes make the family to be an institution. 5. Changes in the institution in one area of social life can place tremendous pressure on those in other sectors. This is especially true in the case of the family. All these aforementioned characteristics make the family an institution. Types of family. All All societies recognize families, although the precise shape and character of kinship arrangements vary. Murdoch, 1965. An important distinction is whether family systems are extended or nuclear. This concept referred to the old system of family relationships and whether the family resides in extended or relatively small household units. Extended families. Extended families are the whole network of parents, children, and other relatives who form a family unit. Sometimes extended family or parts thereof live together, share their labor and economic resources to survive. For example, extended families are common among the urban poor, but they develop a cooperative system of social and economic support. Kin, in such a context, may refer to those who are intimately involved in the family support system and are considered part of the family. Stark, 1974, Collins, 1990, and Anderson and Taylor, 2004. One general pattern is that pre-industrial societies attach great importance to the extended family. A family unit including parents and children, but also other kins. Extended families are also called consanguine families. This means that they include everyone with shared blood. Extended family systems are common among Caribbeans, Latin American, and African societies. Studies of African society show, for example, that the extended family is a pervasive and durable family form that enables members to adopt the changing circumstances, including migration, upward mobility, and economic hardship. Barkeson and Etterson, 2000. According to Barkeson and Etterson, 2002, extended families are also found at the very top of the socio-economic scale. Among elite, extended family systems preserve inherited wealth, whereas among the poor, extended family systems contribute to economic survival. In sum, extended families provide a means of adoption to economic conditions that require great cooperation within families. Nuclear family. The nuclear family is comprised of one married couple that resides together with their children. Like extended families, nuclear families developed in response to economic and social conditions. The outset of industrialization, which sparked both geographic and social mobility, gave rise to the nuclear family. A nuclear family unit composed of one or two parents and their children. The nuclear family is also known as the conjugal family because it is based on marriage. Although many members of our society lived in extended families in the past, the nuclear family has become the predominant form in our contemporary society. Marconins, 1995, and Anderson and Taylor, 2004. Effects of industrialization on families. According to Anderson and Taylor, 2004, the following are the effects of industrialization. The origin of the nuclear family in the West society is tied to industrialization. Before industrialization, families were the basic economic unit of society, and large household units produced and distributed goods. With the industrialization, the transition to wage paying created an economic based on cash instead of domestic production. For example, families, especially nuclear families, became dependent on the wages that workers brought home rather than on goods they were able to produce at home. With industrialization, single women were among the first to be employed in the factories. The shift of wage labor was accompanied by a practical assumption that men should earn the family wage, that is, provide for the dependent. Thus, men worked and women became more economically dependent on men. The family wage system has persisted, and it is reflected in the unequal wages paid to men and women today. 3. Another result of industrialization was the separation of the family and the workforce. For instance, paid labor was performed in factories and public marketplaces. The shift to factory production moved from workers out of the household, and this soon created dual roles for women as paid laborers and unpaid wives. Moreover, the invisibility of women's labor in the home eventually diminished their perceived status. 4. Employers apparently thought that they had better control over laborers if their families were typically not there to distract them. So families were typically prohibited from living with workers. As a result, prostitution camps were developed, which followed workers from place to place. 5. Migration to new lands and exposure to new customs and needs also disrupt traditional family values. For instance, immigrant women who enter the labor force often change their expectation about their gender role, but they also usually find that they must continue to perform traditional household tasks. Kinship systems. Families are part of what are more broadly considered to be the kinship systems. A kinship system is the pattern of relationships that define people's family relationships to one another. Kinship systems vary enormously across culture and at different times. The families as social units are in turn built on kinship, a social bond based on blood, marriage, or adoption that joins individuals into families. Grohl 1995, McCoynes 1995, Anderson and Taylor 2004. Kinship implies ties of blood, biological kinship. Descent, jural or legal kinship, and marriage affiliation. People who descended from a common ancestor are referred to as cognitic kin or cognate. Those who become kin through marriage are affinal kin or affine. For example, people who claim to be cognitic kinsmen may trace their common descent in one of several ways. In patrilineal or agnatic descent, links are traced and rights and duties from the male line. In matrilineal or uterine descent, they follow the female line. Pearl, 1977. A society with unilineal descent may trace rights and duties in one line and inheritance in some other. For example, In a patrilineal society, women may have some inheritance from their mother, and in a basically matrilineal society, children may inherit some goods or position from their fathers. In other words, many supposedly unilineal systems have some double descent aspect. Bohannan, 1969, Pell, 1977. At the heart of all this, diverse family patterns are the social norms and structures associated with kinship systems. Marriage patterns. All cultures have norms that specify whether a person brought up in that culture may marry within or outside the cultural group. This mate selection can be categorized into two: endogamy and exogamy. Cultural norms and often laws identify people as desirable or unsuitable for marriage. Some of these norms promote endogamy, marriage between people of the same social category. Endogamy norms, for instance, constrains marriage prospects to other people of the same age, religion, race, or ethnic groups or social class. Other norms encourage exogamy, marriage between people of different social categories. Throughout the world, societies pressure people to marry someone of the same social background but of the other sex. The logic of endogamy is that people of similar social position pass along their standing to offsprings, thereby maintaining traditional social patterns. Exogamy, by contrast, helps to forge useful alliance and encourages cultural diffusion. Mudrock, 1965, McCorney's, 1995. The other types of marriage patterns among people are monogamy, polygamy, and polyandry. Monogamous marriage. Monogamy is a form of marriage involving two partners. This is the practice of sexually exclusive marriage with one spouse. It is a common form of marriage in Western industrialized nations. Monogamous marriage is not only a cultural idea, it is also prescribed through law and promoted through religious teachings. Lifelong monogamy is not always realized, however, as evidenced by the high rate of divorce and extramarital affairs. Lamana and Redman, 2003. Polygamous marriage. Polygamy is the practice of men or women having multiple marriage partners. This usually involves one man having more than one wife, technically referred to as polygamy. It may also involve a relationship of one woman that is married to many husbands, that is polyandry. Polygamous marriage. Polygamy is a type of marriage uniting one male and two or more females. Although polygamy is commonly associated with Mormons, Old Testament patriarchs also had plural wives. Other groups have practiced this form of marriage in Muslim societies, although mostly among elites. Manisis, 1987, Anderson and Taylor, 2004. Polygamy was also historically linked to high prestige among Muslim men, but because men with the most wives usually held the highest social status. Polygamy also has economic functions. It provides wealthy men who can afford multiple wives with a source of cheap labor, their wives. As a result, polygamy has been most common in agrarian society where a large and inexpensive labor is needed. Polyandrous marriage. Polyandry is a type of marriage joining one female with two or more males. This pattern appears only rarely. One example is among Tibetan Buddhists. In places where agriculture is difficult, polyandry discourages the division of land into parcels too small to support a family and divides the cost among many men. Polyandry also appears in societies that engage in the aborting of females' fetus or killing of female infants, so that the female population drops, forcing men to share women. Mudrock, 1965, McCoynes, 1995. Residential patterns. Just as societies regulate mate selection, so they designate where a couple resides. Residential patterns are also shaped by kinship system. For instance, newly married couples are expected to establish independent household if they can afford to do so. In pre-industrial societies, for example, most newlyweds live with one set of parents, gaining economic assistance and security in the process. Thus, the following residential patterns are identified by Ember and Ember, 1991, McCornins, 1995, and Anderson and Taylor, 2003. Patrilocal kinship systems. In patrilocal kinship systems, after marriage, a woman is separated from her own kinship group and resides with the husband or the husband's kinship group. In other words, patrilocality is a residential pattern that encourages a married couple to live with or near the husband's family. Matrilocal kinship system. In matrilocal kinship systems, a woman continues to live with her family of origin. The husband resides with the wife and her family, though he does not give up membership of his own group. In other words, matrilocality is a residential pattern that encourages a married couple to live with or near the wife's family. A society's inclination towards one variant or the other often corresponds to military or economic patterns. For instance, societies that engage in frequent local welfare tend towards patrilocality, since families need their sons to stay close in order to come to their protection in times of war. On the other hand, societies that engage in distant welfare present a mixed picture, favoring patrilocality or matrilocality, depending on whether sons or daughters have greater economic importance. Neolocal residence. Neolocal residence is the practice of the new couple establishing their own residence. In most matrilocal societies, the husband restrains his importance in the group of his birth and may exercise authority over his sisters and their children. In essence, neolocality is a residential pattern in which a married couple lives apart from the parents of both spouses. Patrilineal descent. Patrilineal descent is a system that emphasizes training kinship through males. That is, in patrilineal kinship systems, family lineage or ancestries is traced through the family of the father. Offsprings in patrilineal systems are typically given the name of the father. Practically speaking, patrilineal kinship directs father to pass on the property to their son. Patrilineal descent is common to pastoral and agrarian society, in which men produce the most valued resources. Matrilineal descent. Matrilineal descent is a system that emphasized tracing kinship through females. Here, people define only the mother's side as kin, and daughters inherit property from their mothers. Matrilineal descent is often found in horticultural society where women are the primary food producers. Bilateral descent. Bilateral descent is a system that emphasizes tracing kinship through both females and males. In a bilateral society, children are linked by kinship to the families of both parents. In bilateral kinship, there is a patrilineal bias that children commonly take the name of the father. The practice of children taking their father's name is also changing as more women are keeping their names. Children's name may be hyphenated with both parents' names, taken from the mother only. It should also be noted that even when the mother and father have different names, children are most typically given the name of the father. Function of the family. The family fulfills a number of functions, such as providing religious training, education, and recreational outlets. This section will focus on the functions of the family. Reflection. Do we really need the family? The answer to the above question borders on the significance of the family. To this extent, Ogborn, 1964, and Schaeffer and Lamb, 1997, have identified 6 paramount functions performed by the family. They are as follows. Reproduction. For a society to maintain itself, it must replace the denying members of the society. In this case, the family contributes to human survival through its function of reproduction. For instance, the family provides a socially approved context for childbearing and childcare. It creates a suitable mating relationship that supports the mother during pregnancy and the children at infancy. Protection. Unlike the young of animal species, human infants need constant care and economic security. Infants and children experience an extremely long period of dependency, which places special demands on older family members. In all cultures, it is the family that assumes ultimate responsibility for the protection and upbringing of children. Socialization. The family socializes the young. It is from the family that the child learns to talk, think, or follows the customs, behavior, and values of his society. The influence of the home on the life of every individual cannot be overemphasized. Whatever a child becomes in his later life is determined by the nature of the home in which he was brought up. During the formative years, children need to be given proper upbringing in order to grow up to become good and useful citizens of the country. In ideal terms, parents help their children to learn to be well integrated and contributing members of the society. Parson and Bales, 1955. However, parents and other kins mentor a child's behavior and transmit the norms, values, and language of a culture to the child. Of course, as conflict theories point out, the social class of couples and their children significantly influence the socialization experiences to which they are exposed and the protection they receive. Regulation of sexual behavior. The family creates conditions for mutual affection among its members, as well as for the satisfactory and control of the sexual needs of its adults. One universal regulation is the incest taboo, a cultural norm forbidding sexual relation or marriage between certain kins. This prohibition or regulation varies from one culture to another. For example, the family prohibits sex between the father and daughter, mother and son, brother and sister. However, in some countries like Ghana, among the Ashantis, sexual intercourse between brother and sister does not generate any horror, whereas among the Talisis of Ghana, it does. Similarly, marriage between a sister and a brother, exogamy, is prohibited in some societies, for example, among the Yorubas. But incest and exogamy help in regulating the sexual behavior of members of a family. Affection and companionship. Ideally, the family provides members with warm and intimate relationship and helps them feel satisfied and secure. Of course, a family member may find such rewards outside the family from peers, in school, at work, and may perceive the home as an unpleasant place. Nevertheless, unlike other institutions, the family is obligated to serve emotional needs of its members. Provision of social status. We inherit a social position because of the family background and reputation of our parents and siblings. The family unit presents the newborn child with ascribed status of race and ethnicity that is a factor in determining his or her place within a society's system of stratification. Moreover, family resources affect children's ability to pursue certain opportunities such as higher education and specialized lessons. Study session summary. In this study session, we discussed the concept of family as an institution. Moreover, we highlighted and explained the types of families, the nuclear family, extended family, kinship system, marriage patterns, residential patterns, and patterns of descent, the main concept of family. The characteristics of this concept were also described as they affect family settings in the society. We also explained the 6 paramount functions performed by the family. These are reproduction, protection and socialization, regulation of sexual behavior, affection and companionship, and provision of social status. All this show that the family has a great role to play in integrating its members into the society. That ends study session 1. Thanks for listening.